Hey guys, sorry it's been a while. I can talk about my life in a different video if you guys want, but for now, let's stick to the tutorials. In this video, we're going to cover a very basic session list menu, and by that I mean we're just going to host a game on one computer, and then on the other computer, instead of directly joining the game, we're going to instantiate a button and multiple buttons for each session. It's hard to see, but right here. So that way, instead of connecting directly to it, you can choose which one you want to join, press it, and then it should join. And voila. Before we get started with anything, let's go ahead and turn off this debug log and the lightning bolt as well. To do that, let's go to Window, Bolt, Settings, and then you scroll down to Miscellaneous and toggle off the debug info, and this is the lightning bolt, and then visible by default will turn off the blue kind of background with all the debug statements. Let's just make sure it worked, and it looks like we're good to go. For this video, we'll mainly be looking at the menu script, and in particular, we'll be looking at the session list updated bolt function. Just to repeat in case you don't remember, this function is called when a server is created or destroyed, and also called every few seconds. Let me just comment that so we remember. Perfect. And with that in mind, essentially what our function is doing is it looks through every session and just connects to the first one it finds. Let's not do that. Instead, we want to create a menu where every room goes, and it's sort of a server selection. You can look through all of them and you can connect to anyone you want to. And to do that, let's start with the Unity editor instead of the code. So let's go to right here. We just have two buttons. That's fine. Well, not that fine. Let's create a panel, and we'll name this the main panel. Whoops. Main menu panel. You can name it whatever you want. Go ahead and put this to transparent, and this will just hold our two buttons for now. And instead, well, first let's create another panel, and we'll name this the server list panel, probably a good enough name, and we'll also set that to transparent, and let us make it so it turns off the menu panel with these two buttons. To do that, we just do this set game object.set active false, and then we'll set the server list panel true. So you just drag it in, game object, set active, true, and we can actually leave this first event for now. With those on-click functions set, let's go ahead and set this panel off by default, otherwise it will obstruct the buttons and you can't click them, and then let's see what it looks like. So the host game button will look the same, we haven't touched that, but when we click join game, this panel should disappear and this panel should turn on, and of course it's blank because we haven't added anything yet, but at least it's working. Also, since we left the start client, this will start the session list updated and it'll start looking, so Bolt is running, and right now I don't have anything running, so we'll never find anything. But we also commented out that code, so if it does find something, nothing should happen yet. So now let's go ahead and create something that will get instantiated whenever session list updated finds a game. So set menu panel inactive and turn this on, and then let's just create a button, and we can name this join game button. And the idea here is to instantiate this button whenever session list updated finds a match. Okay, so let's get into the coding part now. To instantiate this button, let's go into our menu script, and since we're working with buttons and UI, we need to include using Unity engine.ui, and let's get a reference to our button. Public button join game button, and since we're going to need to create this button for however many servers there could be a lot of servers, let's make this join game button prefab and save. A quick side note, I use Mac, as you can tell, and there used to be green, yellow, and red rectangles on the side of the screen that showed me what I saved and what I didn't save. And recently they disappeared, and I have no idea why. If you know why that happened or how I can fix it, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a comment showing me how. So back in the Unity editor, let's go into Canvas, and we have our Join Game Button prefab. And I normally would, if this wasn't UI, I would drag this in and make a prefab out of it. But working with UI as prefabs is kind of weird in Unity because the canvas, the transform of the prefab canvas is sometimes different from the canvas that's in your editor, and that can throw everything off. It's just really weird. So what I tend to do, this might be very wrong, I kind of just slap on prefab in the inspector, and then I set it inactive so you can't see it, and then I kind of just have it act as a prefab even though it's not really a prefab. This probably isn't how you're supposed to do it, but I'm going to do it for this tutorial. Okay, so with that janky prefab method, let's go back in and instantiate the prefab. So for each session it finds, we're going to want to instantiate a button, and let's leave this Photon session. We'll use this later, and for now just go below it and let's instantiate a button and name this button Join Game Button Clone, and we want to set that button equal to something we instantiate, so we'll instantiate Join Game Button prefab. Perfect. And then just to make sure, we don't really need it right now, but it'll come in handy later, let's transform the position of this to 0, 0, 0. So join game button clone, that's a long word, you can change it to what you want. Dot transform dot position. We actually want to do local position because it's in a canvas, and we want to set that equal to vector3.0. And you could do this, that works fine, but for later in the video, I'm going to do new vector3 and set that equal to 0, 0, 0. Again, that's the same thing as what vector3.0 is, except this will come in useful later. And of course, since this is acting as a prefab and we have it set inactive, let's remember to set it active at the end. So join game button clone dot set active, and we can't do that because we need to get access to its game object. So join game button clone dot game object dot set active. Now we can set it active to true. Whoops, dot true, and now we should be good to go. Remember to attach the join game button prefab, which we have already done, and we can go ahead and test it. So first, let's set the main menu active again and not the serverless panel, and then we can build and run. Click windowed and play, and on our client, let's click host game. Let's go ahead and click join game, and then so you saw it, the button clicked and it changed to the server panel. It's loading right now, and nothing seems to have happened, but it did work. You can see a bunch of join game button clones getting created, and there's a couple things going on here. So Bolt is detecting the games and it is creating buttons. One problem is that every time it runs through the session list updated function, it's creating a new button every time it runs through. We'll fix that, but first, where the heck are our buttons? I thought we set the transform to 0. Well, they're not showing up because they need to be inside a canvas to be seen there, and even then they're still kind of weird. So that's easily fixed. We go, let's stop playing and close out of our build, and then so since they were appearing outside of the canvas, we need to set them parented to, we could set them parented to the manuscript.game object. That will make them instantiated right here. But since we have a serverless panel, this is where we want them to be created. So let's get a reference to it. Public game object server list panel, save, go back in the editor, and then drag and drop our server list panel to what we just created. And finally, right here, before we transform anything, we want to join game button clone dot transform dot parent equal to server list panel dot transform. So this just means that when it gets instantiated, it will first be created under this object or whatever you linked it to, and then it will transform the local position to 0, 0, 0. So let's just test that so I'm not crazy. So with our client hosting the game, let's go and join game. It will set this panel active, and hopefully a button should be instantiated under this parent, and perfect, there it is. And with that working, there still are a couple problems. One being that multiple buttons will still be created every time sessions list update is called, but more importantly, this button doesn't do anything yet. So let's solve that. So if you notice, the join game button prefab on click is empty, and we're actually going to keep it that way because there's an easier way to do it from script that will give it direct access to the session in question. And basically, we just want to make a join game function. So let's start with a private void join game function. And we're going to give the button functionality from the script right here. And to do that, we type join game button clone dot on click dot add listener, and we're going to add the join game. Perfect. But this function doesn't do anything right now. When you click it, it will run it, but we need a reference to the session in question so that we can type this code right here, boltnetwork.connect. Let's actually just copy and paste that right there like so. And that's basically what we want. But you see that Photon session does not exist in this current context. And that's because it's a private variable right here. So we want reference to it in this function. Therefore, let's add UDP session as an argument. And we can keep it simple. We'll just name it Photon session, just like up above. And now you see there's a problem with this. And we can fix that, but the syntax will look a little bit weird. So we're still going to want to add listener, but we're going to want to type in two, is that a back parenthesis? Two of those, whatever it is, one forward, boop, boop, like that. And now we can type in the join game and pass it along an argument. And for our argument, again, we just want reference to this. So let's pass in Photon session and add one more parenthesis, and we should actually be good to go. Just to prove it, let's go back into the editor, hit build and run. And if you notice, our onClick is still empty from the editor, but that's okay because we added functionality from Visual Studio in the script. Host a game from our client, join a game, and then as we saw earlier, it should create a button under the correct parent as so. And it doesn't matter right now how many buttons it creates because they all have the same functionality. They all have reference to the same one server. And with fingers crossed, let's press a button. And we have a connection from a button. Hey everyone, I never intended to end the video here, but it looks like the video is going to be upwards of 30 minutes. It's a bit too long, so I think I'm just going to split it into 2 parts and I might upload the second part tomorrow or something. But yeah, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you soon.